Hey fight fans, I'm Sarah Davis and you're watching Fight News Now Extra. We're talking steroids, jail time, and contract extensions next, so stay tuned to find out which fighters are involved in the latest MMA news. And our MMA panel will join us to talk about the hottest fight topics, so here we go. UFC veteran Don Hyun Kim recently told a Korean website that he thinks 90% of the fighters in the UFC are using performance-enhancing drugs. Although he denies using any, he claims that fighters get away with using PEDs by controlling the timing of their drug tests. Undefeated MMA fighter and 2010 Sambo world champion Rasul Mirzaev has been convicted of manslaughter in Russia. In August 2011, Mirzaev punched a 19-year-old man outside of a nightclub in Moscow. The man hit his head on the ground and died 4 days later. At the time, Mirzaev was being pursued by Bellator. And even though Alessio Sakara has lost his last 3 fights, one of them by disqualification, the UFC has offered a 4-fight extension to the Italian fighter. Of course, Sakara signed it, and there's no word on who he will fight next. There has been a lot of talk of a rematch with Patrick Cote. So that's what's going on in the combat sports world. Let's hear from our MMA panel, John Pollock, John Ramdeen, Robin Black, and Rammer. What is up with the Bruce Lee t-shirt?
Today is the birthday of the legend himself, Bruce Lee, so a little tribute action. Of course, he's no longer with us, but, you know, he started it for a lot of people.
That he did. And you know who is not going to be getting it started is George St-Pierre in terms of the super fight and lighting that fire, because he was on a French talk show saying, I will do the fight, but on my terms, and I'm not ready to do it right now. Some great welterweight contenders in the meantime, which to me says Anderson Silva at 38 years of age, I'm not going to be waiting for you anytime soon.
Well, you know what? There's 2 sides to it. As a fan, who wouldn't want to see that fight? I mean, it just would be so epic, right? And you can do it in a giant stadium. But as a fan of George St-Pierre and as a logical thinker, everything he's saying makes absolute sense. He's smaller. You know, he doesn't need it at this point in his career. There's plenty of money to be made elsewhere. I mean, everything he is saying is true. And we're not asking a guy to go paint some house for us, or we're not asking some guy to go buy a new pair of pants. We're asking a guy to get into a cage with one of the best killing machines in the world for our entertainment. And we don't have a right to ask him to do it if he's not ready.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. It comes down to all the ducks in a row for George St-Pierre. Is the money there? Is his weight there? And I mean, GSP has said that, yes, he's willing to move up in weight. That's not the issue. But if he goes up, he does not want to come back down.
I think that's a big mistake.
Well, it's a big mistake in what sense? I mean, the fact is, yes, he goes up, but maybe he's not as dominant. We saw...
That's what I'm saying. Going up to middleweight, why handicap yourself at this point? To me, it's like George St-Pierre has done such an impressive run at 170 that now, to prove how great you are, we want you to tie one hand behind your back. Essentially.
But I think what George is saying is that if he goes up in weight, if he adds 10 or 15 pounds of muscle, he doesn't believe, and the strength and conditioning experts, Chamberg, and all these other guys don't believe that he will be able to come down to where he was before and be able to perform like he does. So it's like, you go up and it's like, now what? Well, I guess I got to stay here.
And I mean, that's not a bad thing for George. I mean, you know, as we get older, we naturally get a little bit heavier, and if George St-Pierre, I know he's in his early 30s right now, but if he gets to be the age of 35 and that progression is already there where he's gaining weight, sure, go up to middleweight. But I don't know if Anderson Silva is going to be around at that stage. I think right now George is on the top of his game at 170 pounds, and why risk your legacy for a fight that on paper, yeah, seems to be competitive, but we can't guarantee that once the cage door closes.
Tons of business to be made with that fight. And another theme here is the fact that until this fight happens, I feel that when Anderson Silva fights the Chris Weidmans of the world and George meets the Johnny Hendricks, the overarching theme is going to be, when is the super fight happening? We saw how annoyed George got in the lead up for the Carlos Condit fight. That is only going to continue. You guys have really opened up this can of worms, teasing this to the public, and until they get it, it's going to be the Pacquiao-Mayweather of MMA, where no matter who they fight, that opponent will be overshadowed by the bigger fruit, so to speak.
Yeah, but the Pacquiao-Mayweather aspect of boxing keeps people talking about boxing. Maybe it's annoying. I'm sure it's annoying for Pacquiao and Mayweather, and I'm sure it's annoying for George, but in the mind, the devious mind of a good promoter, it's like, let's throw that out there, get more reason for people to talk, and annoy the hell out of our champions until maybe they do it.
I actually think the reason why there's so much talk right now isn't the UFC, it isn't the promoter, it's all these fans who simply don't have a clue how the world of fighting works. It simply doesn't make sense to have two guys from two different weight classes. Yes, we hear it in the world of boxing, Pacquiao, Mayweather, and it's taking away from boxing right now because boxing, in my opinion, is on fire. It is rivaling mixed martial arts for pure entertainment. All you have to do is go back and look at the Guerrero versus Berto fight. Tremendous action. I think all these guys should stay in their weight class, really try to build their sport, build the sport of mixed martial arts for George St-Pierre, and let boxing focus on boxing. Let's not worry about these pound-for-pound fights.
You can't put all the blame here on the fans here for simply wanting something that was offered to them. Dana White went so far as to go on ESPN before the Condit fight and say this could probably happen in May. We could put this fight together. So don't tell me here that this is a fan-created demand and it's unfair because the promoter put it right out there and now is pulling back.
Pollock's right. He basically said, hey guys, anybody want to smoke some crack? Here, have a little bit of crack. Just try it once.
Now you got 100,000 crackheads.
I disagree. Dana White, it's the same thing with Fedor. He heard for years and years and years, get Fedor. Who did he hear that from? He heard it from the fans. He tried his best to get Fedor in the organization. It didn't happen. Just like this fight between George St-Pierre and Anderson Silva is not going to happen.
So don't tease it till you have two signatures on a piece of paper. Good knowledge.
But most often, Dana White does get what Dana White wants, right, guys? Okay, well, the UFC isn't the only promotion out there. There's also BAMMA, and they are having their 11th edition this Saturday. We're going to be airing it live right here on Fight Network, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, of course, that's going down across the pond in Birmingham, so don't miss it. Coming up next on Fight News Now Extra, we take a look at Batman Arkham City.